Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Dychronic here on this Destiny 2 video, and today we're going to be going over my top 5 favorite PvE specials in Destiny 2. So again, this video is going to be going over all of these special weapons that I really like to use in PvE in Destiny 2. And again, special weapons are the ones that use special ammo, not the ones in the second slot, otherwise known as the energy slot. Very common misconception. I'm talking about special ammo weapons like shotguns, sniper rifles, stuff like that. Cannot believe how often I have to answer that comment in the comment section below. Recluse is a primary. It is an energy, but it's also a primary. And of course, this list is completely subjective based on my own opinion of my playstyle and how I like to use these weapons. And if you wanted to see more information about all the different special weapons I considered for this video, make sure you stay tuned till the end to be able to see my spreadsheet, my full top 10, all the notes, information, perk recommendations, DPS charts, and all the whatnot you could possibly want to know about these weapons. So there's a bunch of different factors that I use to rate these weapons. First of all, DPS and total ammo damage are going to be a big one for special weapons because these days we're using a lot more special ammo when it comes to dealing damage to bosses or big health enemies. On top of that, there's also going to be kill potential, how close, how accurate, how good you have to be able to actually use this weapon properly, you know, how noob friendly and all that stuff is very important. And thirdly, the availability is pretty important, you know, how often can you actually get one or more of these weapons to drop if you don't have it already. And then finally, a utility factor. If the weapon doesn't do a lot of damage but is extremely useful for certain scenarios like the Divinity is, it's also going to be a big plus. And if you did not know, there's a giveaway going on right now during the holiday season. You can find it in the description down below for an Astro A40 headset, 2 Blue microphone products, and finally a $20 gift code to Control Freak Store. On top of that, if you're ever looking for discounts to any one of those guys, I have 5% off anything from Astro and 10% anything from Control Freaks. Find those links in the description down below. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into number 5. And this top 5 countdown are going to be the legendary shotguns known as Emperor's Courtesy and Last Man Standing. Now, both of these shotguns are very different from each other. Emperor's Courtesy is a lightweight frame, 80 RPM shotgun, whereas Last Man Standing is an aggressive frame, 55 RPM shotgun. Oftentimes, I group weapons together when they're pretty much the same as each other, but in this instance, they're not the same. Now, the reason why these two shotguns are grouped together, firstly, shotguns are just really good in the meta right now. They've dominated a lot of the top spots for PvE. And secondly, they both can have a perk called 1-2 Punch. Now, if you've not heard of it before, 1-2 Punch basically allows you to do increased amounts of melee damage right after landing every pellet of a shotgun shot into an enemy. Now, if you combine that with other melee options from your subclass or an exotic like Liar's Handshake or Synthoceps, you can get up to some pretty insane amounts of damage. I remember seeing a video where a guy was using Worm God Caress, Tractor Cannon, and the 1-2 Punch shotgun and was able to 7-punch kill the new Pit of Heresy boss.
Now that's a lot of damage!
Outside of that, I would highly recommend you take another look at the lightweight frame shotguns. They used to suck absolute balls, but after a few different buffs, they've actually risen in the meta as far as DPS and total ammo damage, so take another look. They're actually pretty good these days. And then lastly, for availability, Emperor's Courtesy comes from Chronosaur's Raid, so that's a bit of a lower one, and you have to get the perk. And then the Last Man Standing one is from Reckoning and Gambit, but again, you also have to get it with the perk. Coming up at number 4 in this top 5 countdown are going to be the legendary shotguns known as Threat Level and Ikako shotgun. Now, normally these weapons are a bit higher on the list, around number 1 or number 2, but with the introduction of some buffs, some nerfs, some changes, some new availability options, there's definitely 3 other weapons that I think are actually going to be better than these weapons nowadays. So if you've never heard of these weapons, Threat Level and Ikako, they're basically the kinetic and energy versions of each other. Ikako you can find from Escalation Protocol during the week that it drops, and Threat Level you can find from the Scourge of the Past raid, both of which are rapid fire shotguns that can get Trench Barrel. Now, Trench Barrel, ever since it released, has been quite a heavy hitter when it comes to DPS in PvE. If you've never heard of Trench Barrel, basically, after committing a melee strike on an enemy, the next 3 shots of that shotgun are going to do 50% more damage, and that is a significant amount. Now, this can be used for DPS against bosses, or it can just be used to do extra damage against elite enemies. It's just, in general, something that is extremely useful for doing a lot more damage than you normally do. Alternatively, if you can get the threat level shotgun to drop with surrounded, put a surrounded spec on it, it does the second highest DPS in the entire game for all special ammo weapons. You do have to actually have, enemies around you to be able to do that amount of damage, but there are a lot of instances that amount of damage is going to happen very frequently. The availability of these weapons are anywhere from low to medium, or threat level you have to get from the Scourge of the Past raid, and you have to get it to specifically drop with the trench barrel. The Ikako shotgun drops from Escalation Protocol, which is easier than it's ever been. I highly recommend you go get it if you don't have it. Coming up at number 3 in this top 5 countdown is going to be the exotic shotgun known as Lord of Wolves. Now this weapon has actually been nerfed a little bit since we last had it on this list, but it still does a pretty significant amount of DPS when it comes to PvE. So if you've never heard of the Lord of Wolves, it can be found basically anywhere in an exotic engram world drop, and it's basically a pulse rifle plus a shotgun put into one. And its main perk called Release the Wolves, where you hold the reload button down to swap to a longer, more powerful burst, so you're firing 10 shots instead of 5 shots, and each shot does more damage. Using that, you can fire all of your shots faster, and each one of those shots do more damage, allowing you to do some pretty impressive amounts of DPS and total ammo damage. On top of that, this weapon has some pretty impressive ranges on it, especially when you have the 10 burst with more damage. That extra amount of damage kind of acts like an additional amount of range. The only drawback to this weapon is the fact that it is an exotic weapon, kicking out the availability to have exotics in your heavy slot, which is the dominating exotic. Coming up at number 2 in this top 5 countdown is going to be the legendary shotgun known as Imperial Decree. Now I know immediately people are going to go to the comments and go, Imperial Decree, that's a PvP shotgun. How could you put this on a PvE list? I invite you to take a look at the numbers, because the numbers, they do not lie. Now normally an aggressive frame shotgun would actually be under that of the DPS of a rapid fire shotgun, but because Imperial Decree can have trench barrel as one of its potential perks, that trench barrel version is actually in the top 5 DPS weapons for PvP specials. Now normally for the rapid fire shotguns, trench barrel is actually the worst version of DPS, even though there's a better total ammo damage. With the aggressive frame shotguns, however, because they fire slower, that melee that's required every 3 shots is less impactful overall to the total amount of required time, and therefore puts it up in number 5 for DPS. Outside of that, this weapon is pretty easy to use as it is a shotgun. You do have to get pretty close range, but a lot of times you're going to need that stopping power against enemies in the close range encounters. And then lastly, the availability is extremely high, being able to specifically select it in Menagerie, specifically have it drop with a ranged masterwork, and you get it every single time you do the Menagerie, considering the Menagerie is pretty easy, is a pretty big bonus. And finally, coming up at number 1 in this top 5 countdown for the best PvE special in Destiny 2, it's going to be the exotic sniper rifle, the only not shotgun on the list, the Izanagis Burden ×4 honed edge with a catalyst. Now if you've never heard of this weapon, it's a very special weapon from Black Armory, where you basically, if you hold down the reload button, you put all 4 shots into a single higher damage shot, so it does a little bit more than those 4 shots would normally do, and with the catalyst you do a little bit more damage on top of that. Now what makes this weapon so very amazing is its DPS. Now the DPS of this weapon is around 42,000, and to give you an understanding of how mind-blowing that is, the highest DPS heavy in the game right now is the Whisper of the Worm at around 38,000 DPS. Now literally a special weapon has the highest DPS in the entire game outside of the supers and whatnots, right? So if you were ever wondering the question, is it more worthwhile to bring Izanagis Burden or Whisper of the Worm in a direct battle of who does better DPS, the Izanagi wins. Now, that is not always the most important part. If you compare the full ammo damage of the Izanagis Burden to that of the Whisper of the Worm has nearly 50% more total ammo damage. So still, over time, Whisper is going to do better. And in conjunction with that, the Izanagis Burden uses all of its ammo with the ×4 honed edge in around 10.7 seconds, meaning you have to switch to a heavy weapon at some point during the DPS phase, which usually lasts around 20 seconds. Whereas the Whisper of the Worm lasts for around 17 seconds, allowing it to last a lot longer, allowing to get that extra amount of second place DPS for a longer period of time before needing to switch over to a special weapon. So I decided I wanted to do a bit of a comparison of what is the best combo, Izanagi with a legendary or Whisper of the Worm with with a legendary. So let's first take a look at the Whisper of the Worm. The best option to use with this for a legendary is going to be the Imperial Decree. Whisper of the Worm lasting 16.9 seconds for the DPS, and let's say the Imperial Decree lasts for the rest of those 20 seconds. Now obviously there's a weapon swap time, but let's ignore that for now. That ends up giving the DPS with this combo around 36,000 DPS. Now let's compare that to the Izanagis Burden paired up with the best DPS legendary heavy in the game. Now those are actually going to be a bunch of swords, and because swords are not often used in boss DPS, let's go for the next option, which is going to be the longer range option, the Crooked Fang linear fusion rifle. So pairing that up with the 10.7 seconds of Izanagi and the Crooked Fang handling the rest of the 20 seconds, your DPS is around 29,000, which is 6,000 less than that of the Whisper combo. Now I know what you're thinking, Imperial Decree is also a closer range weapon. What if you want a longer range option for the Whisper, just like I did with Izanagi? The next highest DPS legendary that's not a shotgun is going to be the Twilight Oath rapid fire sniper rifle. Its DPS around 20,000, put that in the same formula and you have nearly the same amount of DPS, around 36,000 DPS. So you can see pretty definitively the combo with Whisper is always going to do better DPS over a longer period of time than that of the Izanagis Burden. That being said, Izanagis Burden is a special weapon, meaning that it uses special ammo, which is a lot more common, a lot more prevalent. So if you have multiple damage phases that are a lot shorter, like maybe 10 to 15 seconds, and you get more special ammo between those phases, Izanagis Burden is going to end up being the superior option in that case. And that's going to be pretty much it for the top 5 for you guys today. Moving on to my spreadsheet, we can see on screen right now where I have everything that I could possibly know about these weapons, from my perk recommendations for each of the weapons, where you can get them. If you want a tutorial on how to complete a certain thing, where you get the DLC, the RPMs, lots of fun pictures, best mods, masterworks, everything is in here from their effects to what they do. It's a beautiful spreadsheet, color coded. It's got a DPS section here on the right side with some extra notes in case you were wondering, some color coding legends, general notes, masterwork roles, weapon frame sources. I freaking love my spreadsheets. If you've never seen my spreadsheets, this is my spreadsheets. They're some of the best, if not the best spreadsheets you can have for Destiny 2 for weapons on the internet. And I've been on the internet and played video games for a long time, so I know what I'm talking about when I say this is some of the best, because it has everything that you want to know. Obviously not everything, but like basically everything. On top of that, it also has my top 10, so you can actually see like number 7, number 10, and number 9. Very surprised lightweight frames are so high, by the way. Lightweight frames very much surprised me here. But if you wanted to know about other weapons that weren't on this list, best in classes for the linear fusion rifles, or best in class for fusion rifles, loaded question. Pretty poor DPS, by the way. Never has had a big DPS, but people seem to think it does. On top of that, the mountaintop, pretty poor these days, especially considering you can't instantly load them, but still pretty powerful oomph. And then finally, divinity. Incredible utility, allowing you to do the big crit spots as well as extra crit damage, but it's not enough to push it into the top 5 in my opinion, but it's very close and honestly might make it there next season. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you're gonna find yourself some DPS charts with the DPS numbers of all the things and total ammo damage of all the things, and then you have a combined chart with all the things and a logarithmic scale. These charts I just do kind of for fun as an extra thing, so you can kind of see how things pair up. Like you can see the highest total ammo damage is going to be the Borealis, and it's like 3rd place here. And well, that's part of the reason why it's at number 7, but there's a lot of data here that you can find, which is really cool, and I'm a nerd, so you got your charts. If you're looking to get your hands on this spreadsheet, all you have to do is head over to my Discord server, which can be found in the description down below. On my Discord server, there's a channel called #YouTube_Twitch, and around the date that this video comes out, on December 9th, you should be able to find a link to this particular spreadsheet. On top of that, there's links to all of my other spreadsheets as well for PvE, PvP, armors, armor mods, supers, all of that stuff. I've got, I think, 11 different spreadsheets for all of the different things, and they're all amazing and color-coded and dark themed, and almost all of them are in dark theme. Very close, only one more left until that's completely finished. But that's gonna be pretty much it. That's the end of the video. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions and concerns. Let me know your top 5. Obviously, it's gonna be very contritious, especially with Imperial Decree as number 2. But let me know your thoughts and what you think and how it compares to the other ones in the DPS and whatever. But that's it. Hope you guys did enjoy. My name has been Dychronic, and I will see you guys on the next one.